Okay, how to sell final expense life insurance. This is Pete Cormie, by the way, and I've been in the life insurance business since 1987. Most of that time as an agent, but also several years as an agency manager, an agent trainer, and the last 4.5 years exclusively in the final expense life insurance business as a personal producing agent and a managing general agent training agents in life and final expense life insurance. It's a great business. It allows you to work days. It's a one-call close. Really appeals to me. And the folks that we serve really need our help. So it's satisfying as well to be able to help these people who really need it and provide them something that solves a problem that they have. So, how do you sell final expense life insurance? Well, first you need leads, of course. And a quick point about leads. I have, through hard work and due diligence, discovered a few areas to find bad leads. But I have settled on a tremendous lead provider, a guy by the name of Mike Scaturo with Senior Referral Services, produces terrific direct mail leads. Very easy to work with. Mike is honest and direct as you would ever expect and want anyone to be in this business. He is without guile, really easy to work with, and most of all, the thing that really appeals to me with him is he is interested in your success. He really is. He'll take the time to provide you the information and the support that you need, which is not typical from a lead vendor, but Mike goes the extra mile. So anyway, I work primarily direct mail leads, but you can work in this business direct mail, telemarketing leads. You can cold call door to door on the telephone. You can work referrals. There's a lot of different ways to generate leads. I think the agents with the most success over time in the business, though, the important thing that they do, the one thing they focus on is having a steady supply of leads, is not shorting their pipeline of leads, because once you start to cut corners and short your pipeline, your leads pipeline, to slow it down, you will experience production issues, and you don't want to do that. It would be like a grocery store letting the shelves go bare. Pretty soon they won't have any revenue, and so you just need to keep your stock shelved, or your shelves stocked with leads, and then you'll be able to have success. But just as important as the leads is what do you do with them. You need, once you have the leads, you need a sales presentation that works. And when I say works, what I mean by that is you need a presentation, at least I feel anyway, you need a presentation that's ethical and professional and effective. Because if you don't have an effective professional presentation, you're not going to have sales. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through the presentation that I've been using for the past 4 years. It's been very effective for myself and several agents over that time in producing a steady flow of life insurance, final expense life insurance applications. I've broken the final expense presentation into 3 parts. The 3 parts are number 1, establishing your likability and credibility, building trust. Number 2, part 2, confirming the need and asking the right questions. And number 3, finishing well, completing the sale and serving the client efficiently. So part 1, building trust. I think the important thing with building trust with any new prospect, new client, potential client, is to be respectful. And the number 1 way you can be respectful is be on time and be dressed appropriately. And when I say dressed appropriately, my understanding, I think it might vary a little bit by geographic region, possibly. But I know in my area, it's khakis and a dress shirt or a polo shirt is what I wear, with some clean, shined shoes. And that is sufficient for this market, because the final expense market is not a high-class market, it's a middle-class market, and I think you can overdress. You don't want to underdress. You don't want to be shabby, but at the same time, you don't want to overdress. You need to be organized, be confident, and when you meet them, If your mom or dad never told you, you need to smile and look people in the eye when you meet them, and that'll go a long way to establishing your likability and building trust. People appreciate that, allows them to see you for who you are, and hopefully they'll like that. The important thing with building trust is, you want them to see that you are just a regular person, and you're not some mouth breathing, knuckle dragging serial murderer who's showed up at their door. They're already going to have their guard up. You want them to relax. So a smile and eye contact go a long way toward that right at the door. And then what you want to do is you want to maybe make a little bit of small talk. I don't spend a lot of time building rapport. It happens pretty quickly, and it's pretty easy to do if you focus on them. And that's the key through the whole presentation, is focusing on the prospect. And you'll be able to tell from their home what their hobbies, what their interests are. Many times it's going to be the children or grandchildren. Notice those things, ask a couple of questions, find out where they live, which can be very helpful later on in the presentation as well. Ask them what they did for a living. Ask them how long they've lived in their home. Compliment it if it's in great shape. Compliment their yard if it's obvious they really do a lot of landscaping and have a lot of pride of ownership. And then, after a few minutes of that, of focusing on them, you don't need to provide really any information on you. You're going to want to be able to transition, because you don't want to be stuck all day in the small talk. So what I do, it's an easy thing to transition, is there's a slight lull or break in the conversation. I'll say something like, Mrs. Smith or Mildred, I could talk to you all day about fishing, but of course I'm here to get you the information you wanted about a funeral or final expense program, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to get started. And say a smile, or have a smile on your face, look them in the eye and say that, and they'll say, oh yeah, that's fine, let's go ahead. And then it's just moving into part two, which is confirming the need. And again, the focus needs to be completely on the client. Put yourself in their shoes. If you do that, if you put yourself in their shoes, you'll serve them. And if you serve them, they will know that, and their guard will come down, and you'll be able to have a conversation with them that will benefit them. And as a result, of course, if you help them solve their problem and you make a sale, it will benefit you as well. But you want to focus on them. So what I do is I open up my binder at that point, and I have a fresh worksheet right on top. And the worksheet that I use includes an outline of the presentation, so it keeps me on track so I don't miss anything. And the very first thing you need to do when you talk to the client is you need to ask them a very important question. You want to know why they sent the card. And because why they sent the card, that's going to be the focus really of your presentation. That's going to be the driver of the solution that you offer them. So you're going to have to ask them right up front. I say something like this: I'm here today because I got this card from you, and I usually slide it across the table or hand it to them. And of course, I want to get you all the information and find out what you qualify for, just as you asked. But before we do, would you mind if I just start by asking you a quick question? And they always say, no, that's fine, go ahead. And I say, well, over the years I found that my clients have sent these cards in for a few reasons. Now, the most common reason by far is they want to make sure that their death won't create a financial burden on their family. It's a fact. Dying is expensive, and no one who cares about their loved ones wants to leave a large bill for them to pay. Many times people will shake their heads over. They'll stop you right there and they'll say, yes, that's why I sent it. And if they did, and it's a single person, then that's fine. You can leave it at that. But if it's a married couple, or they don't give a solid buying interest at that point, continue. And when I continue, I say the second most common reason is to leave some funds, maybe to a spouse, for ongoing living expenses. Many folks live on a fixed income, and when one of them dies, the survivor's income is reduced. Having a plan to replace this lost income can help them stay in their home and take care of their ongoing living expenses, at least until they have time to adjust. And third, and the least common reason, is sometimes people may want to leave some money to a child or a grandchild or a church or charity. So I guess my question to you is, why did you send in the card? And then I just shut up, and they'll answer. And 9 times or maybe 8 times out of 10, it's because, well, I want to take care of my funeral costs, or I don't want to burden my family, or and they'll give you a reason, and whatever the reason is, validate it. I like to paraphrase it back to them. If they say, well, I want to make sure my funeral's paid, and I'll say, oh, that's a great reason, and that shows me you're a good person. You don't want to burden your family, is that right? And they'll say, yeah, that's right. And what you've done there is you've gotten them to give you the reason that they want this insurance, the reason they need this insurance. You didn't tell them why they needed it. You didn't show them a fancy brochure or company literature that explains why people buy it. You had them tell you why they're going to buy it. So you're 3/4 of the way into having an application completed just by getting an answer to that question. So it's very important to do there. They may come up with some objections at that point. You just need to learn to deal with those objections as they come up. And then following along in the worksheet, next question I ask is, has anyone in your family or anyone close to you ever had to help arrange or pay for a funeral? And of course, if the reason they're buying the insurance is to leave an inheritance, I probably won't ask that question. I'll probably ask a question. Well, tell me about your grandchildren if they're leaving it for a grand. Tell me about your grand. Oh, what are their plans? You want to leave it? And maybe they say they want to leave it for tuition. Okay. Well, how old are they? And do you have an idea what type of major they'll be pursuing? Where they might want to go to school? You just expand on whatever answer that they've given you. Ask some questions. Show some interest. Then I always ask, how much the Social Security pays for a death benefit? And they typically do because they've received so many mailers. And the answer is $255 to the surviving spouse. And sometimes if it's a couple, I'll explain that whoever dies first hits, that spouse hits the lottery because they're paid for. The other one doesn't get anything. Folks usually chuckle at that, and then I'll ask if they're a veteran because I want to make sure they understand that there's a small benefit for veterans as well, including the opportunity to be interred or buried at a national cemetery. And then I'll also say to them at that point, if they are a veteran, I'll say, before I leave today, I'm going to leave a form with you which will ensure that your heirs can take advantage of that benefit when you pass away so it doesn't get missed. And all I'm going to leave with them is a memorial guide, which gives them an opportunity to list in there that they are a veteran so it doesn't get missed. And then the next question is kind of big. Do you have any funds set aside or any program or insurance in place to help take care of your funeral or other final expenses? Most of the time they'll say no. And if they say no, it's very important to follow up on that. And the way to follow up on that is to ask them if they've ever looked into it. I'll say, hey, if you're like me, you probably get a lot of information in the mail, and you see all the ads on TV from people like Alex Trebek and the AARP couple sitting in the diner, and you get the rates in the mail. Is this something you've ever looked into? What did you think? How come you never got anything? Most of the time the answer they'll give you is they were a little confused, or the whole process is confusing. Put them at ease. Let them know you're going to explain to them how the benefits work, and they'll understand completely before you leave exactly what their options are. If they do have insurance, it's always great to find out exactly what they have, because what you'll find is people who've bought the insurance over the TV or through the mail, they really don't understand what they have. That's a whole other subject. But you really, if they have insurance now, you owe it to them to ask them to get their policy, just maybe so you can review to make sure they have their beneficiaries set up right. And then when you get into it, you'll be able to explain to them the deficiency in that program. If they don't have anything or they have an insufficient amount, I'll ask I'll say something like, gee, if you had died last night, how would your family have taken care of your funeral? That really puts I'll say the nail in the coffin, but that hits the nail on the head regarding the true need, if the need is final expenses. And then the last question I ask before I see what they qualify for is, how much will your funeral cost? And they'll sometimes people will look at me dumbfounded, and I'll explain, well, what I mean by that is, would you be interested in a standard ground burial or cremation? Have you given it any thought? And usually they have, and they almost always have. And they'll give you an idea what they're thinking, and you just explain to them what the local costs are for whatever they're looking for. And whenever they tell me, I'll say, okay, well, let's just see what we can get you qualified for. And then I ask the health, their age, and tobacco use, and the health questions to determine what they qualify for based on that. And then I say some words that over the years I think have proven to be very useful and effective. After I've asked all the health questions, I'll say to them, I may not have mentioned, but I am an independent agent. And what that means is that I represent all of the life insurance companies that specialize in senior plans. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take your information and find out which of those plans has the lowest rate. Now, if you have a favorite company, we can use that company. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to go with the plan with the lowest rate. Is that okay? And people will, they love it. I think they really like to hear that. I've never had anybody say they had a favorite company and they wanted to go with it. They've always said they wanted the lowest rate. So what I do then is I determine which company has the lowest rate, and then I pull out a brochure for that company. I explain the 3 guarantees, that the rate will never go up, the coverage will never go down, and it can never be canceled regardless of a change in age or health. And figure up 3 rates, write those 3 rates for 3 different coverage amounts on the back of the card that they mailed in, and slide it across the table and say, you qualify for any of these coverage amounts, and you just tell me what's affordable for you. And they pick one. And then what I do to close the sale, finish well, is I say to them, are you sure that's affordable? You sure that's not going to put a crimp in your budget? Remember, the price will never go up, but I don't want you to start something that you can't afford later on. And once they confirm that they want that and that they can afford it, say, all right, well, just go ahead and grab your driver's license for me and we'll get the paperwork done. And that is basically the presentation. Of course, when you do the presentation in full, you rarely run across objections, and it makes it easy. Or the objections you run across throughout the presentation, which means that when you get to the end, when it comes down to the price, you've pretty much taken care of every question that they could have. And that goes a long ways towards helping them make that simple decision at the end, which plan is affordable. That's basically how I sell final expense life insurance. It's been a pretty profitable endeavor for me for the past 4 years or so, and I'm sure it will be for you too.